you will remember that what was also very important in The Secret was this idea that we talked about before about being passionate, as expressed in the concept of play, of playing with everything that happens in your reality. Really having an attitude of gratitude toward it so that you receive every experience you have in a playful way, and thus by receiving it in that playful way can do that much more with it. Be that much more creative with it. Allow it to be that much more flexible, malleable, stretchable, changeable, formable. Play. Play. That energy is what allows physical reality to become like clay. So play with the clay of physical reality. If you approach it from an energy state of being that is of a lower vibration, that's when the clay hardens. That's when it's unchanging in that state. But as soon as you start to be more playful with what's going on in your life, it softens and becomes clay-like, plastic, malleable, formable, changeable again, and gets in step with the fourth law. As you do. Change is the only constant. So in that sense, when you become more playful, you become more changeable. And as a result, your physical reality will mirror that changeability. Become easier to transform from one kind of reflection to another. Now, very important. This is where physical mind, once again, can sometimes get caught up in its own sense of control. And that is that when we talk about the idea that what you put out is what you get back, the physical mind, because, again, of how it looks at physical reality being the only thing there is, will assume that if it doesn't see an exact one-to-one reflection in the circumstances that surround you with what it is you believe you're giving off, you will think that something has failed. Again, I remind you, this is where you get caught in your own paradoxical trap. Even though it is true that what you put out is what you get back, and that by being in a certain state of being, that will determine what the circumstances around you are, the first stage of that, the first manifestation of that, will be usually, especially in your world of space and time, usually the first reflection will look the same as it used to. Because this gives you an opportunity to reinforce the state of being by responding to the circumstances that look the same differently than you did before. And that is where you then allow the circumstances to truly reflect that you have changed and demonstrate that you truly have changed by responding to the circumstances differently, even if they look the same as they used to. That's how it works. So the first reflection will usually be an echo of how it used to look. You must not respond to the echo as if that's the representation of your new state. You must respond to it, in a sense, as if you know it's just an echo, and that what you're putting out now, the new response to the old circumstances, that will solidify the vibration of your preferred state of being and truly allow the circumstances to change themselves and take their cue from the new vibration you're putting out, which is the absolute certainty that you are different. Because if you respond to the old echo in the same way you used to, you are not different. So in a sense, it's like you're testing yourself. It's like you're giving yourself an opportunity to decide whether you really do want the circumstances to change by first presenting yourself very often with the same set of circumstances to see if you respond differently to them, making a clear commitment that you have, in fact, vibrationally changed your state of being. Once you have then done that and respond differently to the same set of circumstances, then you have established that you truly have changed, and then the circumstances can reflect that change. So don't be fooled by the echo into thinking you've done something wrong by labeling it in the same way you used to. Oh, I didn't see what I wanted to get immediately. It looks the same as it did before. The same people are here giving me the same kind of feedback. I must have done something wrong. Or something's not working. Or you find that you're reacting to it in the same way you used to, because if you do, you have not changed. So that's the self-reinforcing mechanism that gives you the opportunity to decide whether you really want to change that circumstance or not. Because again, remember, all belief systems by definition are self-reinforcing. They have to be. If belief systems were not self-reinforcing and making themselves seem like the only thing there is to believe in, you wouldn't be able to have an actual, distinct, discrete belief system experience. If beliefs did not come with a self-reinforcing mechanism, you wouldn't be able to have a discrete physical experience. And because they come with a self-reinforcing mechanism, when you change your vibrational state, one of the last things to fade will be the self-reinforcing mechanism. It will present the same scenario to you once again, but it will be presented not as a concrete reality, but only as an illusion, only as an echo of what was, to give you a chance to really decide that you will break through that self-reinforcing mechanism by defining and labeling it differently than you used to, proving that you have changed, thus allowing the reflection to then truly come. That's how that works. Use that mechanism to your advantage by understanding very clearly. And if you wish to use this almost as a mantra, you certainly may. Again, as we discussed last night, all of these things are nothing more than permission slips that, if you decide they work for you, if you decide they resonate according to your frequency, will simply allow you to permit yourself to change in the way you prefer to. The mantra doesn't do it for you. It simply is a reflection of the belief system within you that says this is what you will allow to give you permission, to give yourself permission to change in the way you wish to. So use this as a mantra if you wish, if it works for you, knowing that you're doing it if you need it at all. And that is, again, the idea, not even so much the statement that circumstances do not determine state of being. State of being determines circumstances. Now you can use that. However, we would also suggest something even simpler and something even stronger. And that is simply, and the mantra is this: circumstances don't matter. Only state of being matters. And again, listen to the way that this synchronistically translates in your English language. Circumstances don't matter. They do not create materialization. Only state of being matters. Only state of being materializes experience. So, the mantra is, anytime you find yourself doubting, stuck, fearful, because of what you believe the situation is, what you believe the circumstances are, you can, if you wish, use this little reminder. Circumstances don't matter. Only state of being matters. And then choose the state of being you prefer. And then redefine the circumstances from that state of being, so that you can erase the echo and allow the true reflection to then take form from your state of being.
So, before we talk specifically about the energy of excitement, let's talk now about the idea of the belief system within your personality. Let us begin with the basics. You are an unbroken consciousness. You are one spirit. But when you choose to experience the idea of physical reality, then certain things have to be created in order for your spirit to have that experience. You must create what is called the physical personality. This is similar to the idea of when you want to go scuba diving, you must bring certain apparatus with you, such as a diving suit and a breathing apparatus and a mask to be able to see clearly underwater. So as a metaphor, there is your spirit hovering above physical reality, just like a diver would hover above the surface of the water, looking down into it, wondering, I wonder what's down there. And so the spirit, looking into physical reality, saying, I wonder what's down there, I think I'll go see, must then create the proper tools to be able to function down in physical reality vibration, which is a little bit lower than the spiritual level in frequency. Now, of course, from time to time, spirits can pay short visits to physical reality, but this is the same idea as simply jumping in the water without scuba equipment and holding your breath for a while before you come back up. But in order to really stay down there and explore for a long time, you have to have the breathing equipment, the proper equipment to be able to see and appreciate what is going on under the water or down in physical reality. And just as water is denser than air, the vibration of physical reality is, in a sense, denser or thicker than non-physical spirit reality. And just as you move more slowly in water than you do in air, things move a little bit more slowly in physical reality than they do in spirit, because the vibration is lower. The spirit must lower its frequency down into a slower vibration of time and space. And in order to explore time and space, physical reality for a long time, you must create the proper apparatus, that is, the body and the personality. So then, as you generate the idea of transforming into a body, you simultaneously then form, as the body grows, the concept of the structure called physical personality. And for the general theme that you know you are choosing to explore in physical reality, you will in a sense then choose generally the people that you will be with, your parents, and the general time of your birth, so that the frequency of physical reality at that moment will in a sense create an imprinting upon the body that generates a specific kind of personality. And this is the basis of the concepts that you call astrology and so forth, because what is happening is that when you physicalize, it's like crystallizing a moment in the totality of space-time, and that is like being able to read a general blueprint of the kind of personality structure you have frozen in order to explore the theme in physical life. In that sense, the personality is analogous to the idea of an ice crystal. It has a certain kind of beautiful form and structure. It has a pattern that can be understood and appreciated and read. Now, the unique thing about the personality, however, is that while it is, in a sense, frozen in one way, it is very fluid in another way. In order to explore physical reality, you must maintain the basic components of personality, which is thoughts and emotions and beliefs. But because you are never disconnected from the spirit that you have the ability to constantly rearrange the pattern of the ice crystal of your personality, to change the beliefs, the emotions, and the thoughts. So as long as you choose to remain physical, you will maintain the general framework of a personality, but you will constantly change the content of the framework. And the framework, once again, is beliefs, emotions, and thoughts and action in that sense, or behavior. The first level of the personality is beliefs. They are definitions that you are taught to believe are true about reality. It is very important how that is phrased. We are not saying that beliefs are true representations of reality. We are simply saying beliefs are what you have been taught to believe are true representations of reality. Without a belief or a definition of reality, you cannot experience physical reality. Conversely, everything that you do experience of physical reality stems from what you believe or define to be most true about physical reality. From this idea, you can clearly understand that if you want to change the experience of physical reality, what you need to do then is change the belief, change the definition you have of reality. Now, please understand that when we go into detail about how to change your definition and how to change your beliefs, we're talking about how to do this more consciously, because you're already doing this all the time. If you were not changing your beliefs and definitions all the time, you would not have an experience of time and space in physical reality. Nothing would seem to change at all. So you are really very, very rapidly, on an unconscious level, changing your definition of reality all the time in order to have a sense or an experience of continuity and motion and the change of time. And by bringing a certain aspect of this ability into more conscious awareness, it gives you more control as to exactly how to change those definitions and what kind of experience of physical reality to have. We will get to the idea more specifically of how to change definitions and beliefs in a moment. But first, let us go to the next component that creates physical personality, that is emotion. Emotion is literally energy in motion. And all emotions must come from beliefs. In other words, you have to have a belief about something before you can actually feel a certain way about that thing. If you don't have a definition of something, if you don't believe something to be true in a certain way, then you don't actually have a feeling about that thing, or not very much of one. So all of the feelings that you experience in life stem from a definition that exists within your personality first. And then the third component is the idea of thoughts, your mental side. And so all thoughts, in a sense, stem from the emotions, which stem from the beliefs. In some senses, thoughts can also generate more directly from beliefs as well, but they usually come through the emotional component at the same time. And this forms the triangular structure of the personality, which is belief, emotion, and thought patterns. All together, these three components then determine behavior, action. This is why you have a saying on your planet. You know who they are, you know who a person is, not so much by what they say, but by what they do. Because when a person just says something, you may be dealing with only really one or two, in a sense, of the components of the personality structure. You may be dealing with all three, but not in an active way. But when you see a person's behavior, you can know, without a doubt, that you are seeing the result of the activation, the engagement of all three personality components fully engaged, fully active. And then you can tell from your own behavior, your own actions, or someone else's behavior, someone else's actions, as to whether or not there is any imbalance or negativity in any of the three components of their personality. Since the triangle of personality is belief and emotion and thought patterns, the idea is that these three must be in perfect equilibrium, perfect balance. In a sense, you could use a metaphor and say that if there are negative beliefs and negative emotions and negative thought patterns, then in a sense, you could say that the triangle is reversed. And then you can learn to bring it back into balance with the ideas and techniques that we will be discussing this day. The reason that this is so important is as follows. If you are going to create the reality you prefer, if you are going to manifest your dreams, you must allow the physical personality to be in balance. That's one thing. You must create the beliefs, emotions, and thought patterns to be in a positive state of energy. And in order for these ideas, in a sense, to stay with you, for you to be able to use them, you must be in harmony with your spirit and in harmony with creation. What this means in simple language is you must be willing and able to love yourselves fully, unconditionally, and accept the unconditional love of all that is. Because no matter how many techniques we may teach you or how many tools we may share with you, none of them will really stick very strongly or have a strong effect if you do not harmonize with yourself and creation first by staying within a state of unconditional love. Anytime you move out of that vibration of loving yourself and receiving the love of creation, the tools will be less effective. The techniques may still work a little bit, but they will not be as powerful, they will not be as lasting. The reason that the tools are designed this way, to be more effective when you are in that state, is so the tools will always guide you back to that state where they work best. So all the tools and techniques contain a self-guidance system to bring you back into alignment, or perhaps more specifically, to make you want to go back into alignment so that they will work more powerfully. So the tools, in a sense, are functioning like the scuba diver's mask. When you are out of alignment with your self-love and the love of creation, it's like taking the mask off. Suddenly everything underwater looks murky and fuzzy and indistinct. It's harder to tell what direction you're going in because you cannot see the landmarks under the water as clearly. But when you put the vibration of love back into the equation, it's like putting the mask back on and suddenly everything is sharp and clear and your path is well defined. Now suddenly it's not just things close up you can see. Now you can see the big picture. You can see and appreciate at a distance. So, when you are then using the techniques we are going to share and you find that they are not working so strongly, center yourself, get back into alignment, love yourself, receive the love of the infinite, stay in that space, and they will work just fine. When you stay in that state of love, you have a 100% guarantee from the infinite that these tools will work as advertised. The thing that is beautiful about creation is that guarantee never expires. It is forever.
Today's transmission is a break from the steps. We would like to introduce a deeper explanation of the concept of what we refer to as soul cycle, the cycle of the soul. So your title is Soul Cycle. The idea being that in looking at the diagram that we have provided, you start as a soul. Imagine a sphere of light, choosing to become physical, or in other words, to have a physical experience, as we have outlined, is the product of the soul choosing specific paths, specific experiences, so the soul can grow, specific ideas, specific challenges. And this is done by creating certain patterns of energy within the soul, and these patterns of energy will allow part of the soul to render down bit by bit collapsing down into the center of the soul, as you see in the diagram, these vibrations and these specific frequencies, these specific vibrations, as they collapse down into the center, as they are focused into the center of the soul, first and foremost, create the idea of the planning stage, the blueprint stage, the template stage, where you lay out, vibrationally speaking, all of the challenges, all of the themes that you are choosing to explore specifically for the soul's growth in what you refer to as this incarnation. So this is where you arrange and order, from conversations with your guides, with soul family, so on and so forth, the beginning of condensing down into a kind of pattern, that which represents the blueprint of the physical experience that you are choosing to have. It orders the idea of what the personality will be like, how you will approach things, and the way in which you will allow yourself to experience challenges so that you can transform them and overcome them. And then as the vibrations continue to condense a part of the soul, remember, the whole soul still stays there. That has not shrunk, but the condensation has happened within the soul, so that a part of the soul, some of the material, so to speak, of the soul, within the soul is being condensed down by these vibrations, by these frequencies that represent the soul's path in physical experience, reality. And so as it continues to condense, now you're talking about arriving at the level where the soul is about to be born physically through the physical processes that you experience in space and time, physical birth. And in that condensation, the soul develops the connection again, remains and retains the connection with the higher mind, which is what the soul is. But now you have a reference to the idea of becoming a physical focused being, but maintaining the connection to the soul, which you are now starting to refer to as the higher mind, the non-physical mind, that remains in spirit, so to speak, or remains its natural spirit self, because even the physical body is still within spirit, because it's within the soul. It's just an arrangement of frequencies that allows you to experience the idea of physicality in a different way than you typically experience yourself as a spirit, as a soul. But the idea is that the body is still part of the spirit, part of the soul. It's just a different arrangement of it, a different focus within it. And now you've arrived where you have the physical birth and being a young child, which is still very strongly connected in awareness to the soul, and can, in a sense, kind of expand back out and condense again and expand back out in a way that you would recognize from the space-time perspective as the opportunity for the young child to still go back to spirit, to not necessarily remain as a physical focused being. So for about 7 years on average, a young child still has the ability to be aware of its connection to all that is, its connection to higher mind and soul, to communicate freely, to remember things like other incarnations, so on and so forth, other connections to extraterrestrial forms, so on and so forth, but to also start organizing over those 7 years, on average, can be 9 years, can be less, but on average about 7 years, start organizing in a way that it starts absorbing ideas telepathically from its parents, its society, its schooling, its friends, to lay the foundation, to overlay the challenges, the belief systems, to feed the personality with the belief systems and arrange them that will be representative of the challenges that that soul chose to face. So now this is where they start becoming crystallized into a physical personality based on the belief systems that are necessary in order to experience the challenges that the soul chose to experience in order to discover new aspects, new perspectives of itself, and to grow by transforming these challenges and overcoming these challenges to discover a new aspect of the self. And then, in the final completion of the solidification, the crystallization of that physical persona within the center of the soul, when all the vibrations have, in a sense, finished their task of creating that physical personality within the center of the soul, now you have the older child or the adult that is fully ensconced within the idea of the physical reality it has chosen to experience, the culture it has chosen to experience, the belief systems, the themes it has chosen to experience, and how the personality expresses itself, and how it goes about responding, reacting through the belief systems to whatever it is that will give it the best opportunity to face these challenges and to transform them in a way that will allow the soul to grow. Then the cycle, in a sense, is reversed. As the soul and the physical personality learns more and more, as it chooses to transform challenges in a variety of different ways, the consciousness begins to expand again. And so the physical crystallized idea of the personality that is representative of the physical being starts to soften, starts to expand back out again, and becomes more aware, becomes more connected, aware of its connections to higher mind and other dimensions and spirit and ETs and all sorts of things. And this is the transition that you experience from the very dense third density physical experience to the less dense fourth density physical experience, which is where many of you are now transitioning into. You're becoming a fourth density human. That means your consciousness is a little bit more relaxed, more expanded, going back out toward the idea of what you are as a soul, allowing more of the vibrational connections that created your physical personality to be used as conduits of communication to the soul, to the higher mind, so that you can inform yourself, you can be a better antenna and a receiver for messages from your guides and soul family and angelic realms and extraterrestrials and extra-dimensionals and parallel realities and so on and so forth. Now you're using those vibrations that the soul used to create the physical personality as conduits of communication. So now these vibrations serve a different function, whereas initially they were used to collapse a part of the soul into a physical persona. Now with the expansion of your consciousness back outward a little bit, you are now able to use those same vibrational frequencies as conduits of communication. And then the next step up, you can see, is more the idea of a representation of an out-of-body experience, an astral form, which you experience when you are dreaming, when the body is asleep, where you are going on adventures and having conversations and having other experiences that the physical personality may remember as a dream. But for the moment, you are a little bit more expanded. And when you wake up in the morning, you may collapse back down again, but maybe not so far. So again, you are retaining the ability to ponder what that experience was about in terms of what you remember as a dream. And you are able to use those conduits of communication more efficiently because of what you learned by having the astral experience, the out-of-body experience, while your body was asleep, when you were dreaming. And so, the idea is that then the astral form, being closer to spirit, between, it is not on this chart, but between the fourth density level expansion diagram and between the astral diagram is where my civilization is. As we say, we are quasi-physical, having the traits of both physical reality and spirit, so that we are actually experiencing the way you would experience reality as an astral being while we are still physical. So halfway in between that second and third stage on the diagram on the right is where my civilization exists, where we are evolving more toward being permanently astral, permanently spirit, but still retain physical properties in many different ways for a variety of reasons. But then as you start practicing more of becoming more expanded as a consciousness, spending more time in the astral realm, making different kinds of connections, learning what you needed to learn as lessons from that physical experience, and then arriving toward the end of the timing that you chose for your physical experience, then you go through the idea of the physical death, you're expanding back out fully into spirit, back fully into the idea of the soul form that you are, that sphere of light, that sphere of energy, that is the natural form of your soul. And so you have then completed the cycle, which then you can decide to do again in a different way, going round and round and round, collapsing into the center, expanding back out, collapsing into the center and expanding back out as you experience what you perceive from your linear space-time perspective to be a series of incarnational experiences that you call past lives and present lives and alternate lives, parallel lives and future lives and so on and so forth. But it's all happening within the soul as you collapse down, expand back out, collapse down, expand back out, and experience the idea of space-time and then timelessness, and space-time and then timelessness. We will talk about the degree of time in another transmission, because there is a difference between the way you experience the concept of time in physical reality, the way you experience the concept of time as a soul, and the way that the oversoul experiences the concept of time. And we will discuss this at another time. But for now, you can see in this chart the idea of the soul cycle, the cycle of the soul, as it creates experiences within itself and then goes back to its full self and then condenses down for a different experience and goes back. So it's kind of like breathing, in and out, in and out, the expansion and collapse and focus of consciousness and the expansion back into the idea of the full awareness of the soul. Now, this idea still all happens simultaneously, even though we are describing it from a linear perspective, as if these condensations happen one after another. That's the linear perspective. But again, we will discuss at another time the perspective of the oversoul, where all of these collapses down to different personalities and all the expansions back up to the soul level all happen simultaneously from the oversoul's point of view. So, we would like to have then presented this to you so you can ponder this cycle, ponder this chart, and understand the idea of what is happening so that you realize that the truth is your body does not have a soul. Your soul has a body. You don't have a soul, you are a soul. And it is within yourself as a soul that everything you call the physical reality experience happens until you decide to expand back out and experience yourself once again as the full soul that you are, always have been, and forever shall be, because you are eternal and you are infinite, and that is who you are, and that is what you are as an aspect of all that is. So we thank you for allowing us to share this idea with you this day of your time. I will take that as okay. We thank you, each and every one of you individually, all of you together collectively, for the co-creation of this interaction. Once again, each and every time your civilization interacts with our civilization in this way, it creates a link, a bridge, and a third reality in which we can, one day, interact more and more closely, more and more immediately. So we thank you for the co-creation of this new paradigm, this new reality in which we can, all together, learn to play. This day of your time, this transmission will begin with a discussion of imagination. Now, we have talked about imagination many times. We would like to take the concept a little bit further this day of your time. We have reminded you of the synchronicity
in many of the words that exist in various languages on your planet. We understand the channel's language is English, and in this context, we point out again, as many of you are already familiar with, the synchronicity of the word imagination. Magi, nation. A nation of magicians is what you are. And you can use your imagination to create the kind of nation, the kind of world that you prefer. Imagination is an extremely powerful tool, and we will discuss in what ways this is so, and how you can apply your imagination in very powerful ways to allow and to create the kinds of changes that you would prefer to represent within your lives, individually, and again, within your lives, collectively, globally. And as you thus then move out into the cosmos, into the stars, and join with us eventually, you will find imagination is going to play a very key role in your ability to do that. So let us begin. We will remind you, first of all, that we have talked about the idea that imagination is the conduit between your higher mind and your physical mind. It is the pipeline through which your higher mind communicates with you, and through which, in receiving that communication, you can then, as physical beings, as physical personalities, apply the information, the imagination that comes from higher mind, the communication, into your physical lives, to alter them, to change them in ways that are more reflective of your passion, your excitement, your joy, your preference, or not. It is up to you to use this positively or negatively. It is up to you. But imagination is the key to allow an alignment to occur. And if you are willing to use your imagination without filtering the communication from your higher mind through belief systems that contain fear, then you will find that the outcome can always be a positive one, and you can always amplify and magnify that in any direction, in any area of your lives, whatsoever, no matter what. Higher mind, again, I remind you, has the far-seeing point of view. It stands on the mountaintop. It can see all the pathways you could possibly take in life, and it guides you toward the path of least resistance, the path that is most truly you. As we have said many times, the vibration of excitement, the vibration of passion is what functions like the compass needle. It is your magnetic north to your true self. By following your passion, by following your excitement, by pointing the needle in that direction and that direction only, you will always be completely, purely, squarely on the path that is most truly you, your core, true, natural self. Your imagination is the conduit through which your higher mind can guide you in this very easily, if you allow it to be effortless, which you can. Physical mind, then, chooses in physical reality various ideas of how to apply these ideas coming from the higher mind in ways that are also pleasing to the physical being that you are, the physical personality that you are, and you learn to work in concert as a whole being, as a whole person with the higher mind. For if the physical mind thinks that it must take on the job of figuring everything out, how is this going to happen? How can I make this happen? How can I bring everything together to get this to happen? If the physical mind thinks that it must be the only one doing that job, it is going to be burdened, it is going to be weighed down, it is going to be tired. Because the physical mind is not designed to know how things will happen. The physical mind is only designed to know how things have happened. The idea is thus then to trust the higher mind to let you know that if the higher mind is sending you information that pushes you in the direction of your passion, and you trust that, What the higher mind is telling you is that by following your passion, the how will be taken care of, because the higher mind can see how you're going to get there, and the translation of that how through the imagination is the physical sensation of excitement, joy, passion, and love. That's how the higher mind speaks to the physical mind through the conduit of imagination, with those feelings, those vibrations, those energies, those pictures. So the physical mind can learn to relax and not feel it has to carry all the weight of the world on its shoulders for figuring out exactly how everything's going to come into manifestation in its life. You can allow the higher mind to guide you in that, and you can relax and ride the wave of the energy that the higher mind sends through the imagination and allow things to unfold in a synchronous manner, in an effortless, joyful, creative, loving manner. And thus then find yourself flowing through life. And even if the path that it leads you down may seem to be going left, going right, going here, going there, going where you least expected it to go, that is cause for celebration. Because as we say in our world, anytime something unexpected comes up, you want to say congratulations. Now you know you're really following your joy and allowing your life to unfold synchronously in front of you without it being so planned out, so rigidized, so insisting that it must be one way or another. Because if you really are open to the idea of what your higher mind can do through your imagination, it will almost always bring you something that is even more exciting than the physical mind was capable of actually picturing. So when you insist that it must be a certain way, you're actually limiting the ways in which it could actually come to you that might even be more exciting than you are actually capable of imagining. But imagination can act as the guide, the initial visualization mechanism to at least give you a bearing, give you a heading. And you can use that picture as a symbol to represent the energy, to symbolize the energy of the reality that is representative of your highest joy, of who you wish to be. But if you rigidize that picture and insist that it must turn out that way, then you are actually fighting against the flow of your higher mind. If you relax that it could come to you in another way and that what you're picturing is just a representation of that reality, then the energy can flow and you may find yourself winding up in a situation that is even more wildly fantastic than you were at first capable of picturing. Now, here is something else that is very important to understand about what imagination is. First of all, of course, understand it is a state of being. And any state of being causes certain kinds of states to exist in the neurology of your brain. When you are in an imaginative, creative state, your brain, the neurology, the way the electrical pathways flow will be different than any other state. Here is something that is important to understand. When you are born in physical reality, the first moment that you crystallize, shall we say, your spirit into the physical matrix, it crystallizes a kind of pattern within you that represents the idea of your soul agreement, your relationship to your higher self at that moment. What happens to it from there on will depend upon a lot of things, including input from your parents, society, so on and so forth. But that core agreement, that core relationship will always exist. So when you go through life and you've lived several years, and maybe you find yourself becoming in your older age a little bit confused, a little bit forgetful of where you're going, why you came here, so on and so forth, looking for your joy, looking for your passion. Going into the state where you allow yourself to communicate with higher mind through your imagination will actually always bring you back to your 0 moment agreement of when you were born. It will actually restructure the neurological pathways of the brain back to that childlike moment where anything is possible. That's what's key to understand about the function of imagination in your physical reality. It's your reset button. So when you find yourself feeling lost, feeling confused, feeling at odds, go into your imagination. Open up the conduit of communion between your physical mind and higher mind and push the reset button. Go back to the 0 point. Let the neurological pathways realign. And then in that state, open up to the infinite possibilities and the choices you have made, and go forward from there afresh, anew, reinvigorated, as a new persona. Because again, remember. When you make any change, you have made a total change. And that is what imagination allows you to do. Realign yourself in such a way in bringing yourself back to a kind of 0 point that you can then step out from there on any path you really so desire that is representative of your highest passion. And know that when you do so, you really have cleaned the slate. And anything that may have seemed to be an issue that was an obstacle or a complication in your life formerly, at that moment of zeroing yourself out, is actually no longer there. Now, you can co-create it again. You can say, oh, it's still there. I still have to get over this. I still have to deal with this. You can do that. If that's your process, that's fine. I am not telling you how to live your life. If you want to include complications and misery in your life, please go ahead. I will not stop you, because if that's what gives you, quote-unquote, joy, then by all means go ahead and involve yourself in that idea of struggle. If that's your process, love it. And then you'll get the most out of it. What I am simply saying is you do not have to do that. You actually have a choice. And in that moment that you zero yourself out with your imagination and allow your neurology to realign, recrystallize back to that first moment, that first agreement, when you were a child, a newborn child, and step forward in that state of being, then all bets are off, as you say. You really have lost your history. You really only live in the present in that moment. And what you do from that moment forward is up to you. And it will be, it can be your reality completely, wholly, totally. Now, we have talked about the idea of imagination in context to the concept of all that is. The universe, if you will, the multiverse, creation in totality. Whatever you wish to label it, it doesn't matter. And then we spoke about the idea of understanding this. You cannot imagine non-existence. Go ahead, I'll give you a minute, try it out. There, you see? Couldn't do it. Because the point is that even if you could, by definition, imagining non-existence would be non-experiential. Therefore, how would you know you had done it? You would have no experience of it. And in having no experience of it, in that context, it isn't relevant. It doesn't exist. Therefore, conversely, anything, everything that you can imagine is somewhere, somewhen, somehow a reality, a real reality. It may not necessarily be relevant to the reality you are creating on Earth, but it is nevertheless real in some parallel dimension, some other reality, whatever you wish to label it. Whatever you imagine is also happening simultaneously with the reality that you are actually physically experiencing. So if in your imagination you do imagine you have 3 arms, wings, 4 eyes, and are purple, there is a reality where such a being, such a version of your soul actually does exist. It may not ever cross paths with you on Earth. You may never know that until you go to higher planes where you can see more of your soul's creation, and then you will go, oh yeah, there I am. doing that thing in that universe with that kind of a form for that kind of a reason, because that's a symbol and a reflection of that kind of path and that kind of an experience. So anything you imagine is, in fact, tapping into some other simultaneously coexistent real reality. Yes, really, really real. Just as real as you feel your physical reality is for you. Now, the idea, of course, is one of discernment. It is real, but is it relevant to your reality? The idea of following your joy, following your passion, it's not to say you cannot create that here, but it is highly improbable, not impossible, but highly improbable based on the agreement you made to participate in the co-created mass consensus reality of Earth at this point in space-time, as you have created it. Strange things can happen on your planet, and strange things have and always will. And some of them are the confluence of someone actually fully letting go of any assumptions and expectations about what this reality has to be, opening the door a little wider than normal, and perhaps suddenly, there you go, something pops in that may not normally be relevant to your reality, and suddenly a legend is born, a myth is born. Oh, did you know there was such a creature, such a thing, such a happening? Well, those things do happen. They may pop in, they may pop out, and never be seen again. That doesn't mean they weren't real at that moment. It may have simply been only, in a sense, I'll put it this way, a momentary defocusing, a momentary relaxing of your agreement, but it also may be part of your agreement in the sense of presenting those kinds of ideas and realities to yourself so that you can play off them, reflect off them, and see how it might apply to some aspect of your agreement here in this reality. Nothing happens by accident. It can all be played off of. It's all an orchestration. All we are simply saying is, it's also a matter of discernment as to what works for you. And if you use your imagination in this way and apply these things in a manner that will work for you based on your understanding of your true self and the agreement that you made to be your true self in this particular modality, in this particular reality, then you can stay aligned and harmonious with your higher self and understand what it is you can achieve in this reality. You have far fewer limitations in this reality than you think, even within the parameters of the limitations you have imposed upon yourself for what is possible in this reality, or at least what is probable. The idea is that anything that represents your true joy, anything that represents your true self, your true passion, is manifestable. Is manifestable. But it is also about you paying attention to what is actually representative of your passion and not representative of your anxiety that is simply being called your passion. It requires discernment on your part to know whether you're coming from fear or true joy, and not labeling things that are representative of your fear as excitement when they actually in fact are not, but also vice versa. Not labeling your joy as a fear when it actually is representative of your true path. Because many people on your planet will stay away from the thing that really excites them the most because they have put a label of fear on it, or society has taught them to do so. This again is where your imagination can, in a sense, come to the rescue. Go back to your 0 point, press your reset button, and go, wait a minute. Who am I at the core? Who do I imagine myself to really be? What kind of person am I passionate about being? What kind of life am I passionate about living? In your imagination, you can see all those things. And that's why you have said many, many times what's important. Whether it becomes literally manifest as you see it in your imagination or not, what's important for communication and harmonization between the physical mind and higher mind is that when you do get a picture in your imagination of who you prefer to be, what you prefer to be doing, where you prefer to be doing it, how you prefer to be doing it, when you see that, all you really have to do is mimic it, mirror it, act it out as best as you can on all levels of your life. All you have to do is be like that person in your mind's eye. Do things the way he or she would do it. And then when you start doing things the way he or she would do it, you will change your vibration to the vibration that is representative of that life. And when you shift your vibration to the representation of that life, you will start to synchronistically have that life. All the things that are representative of what that you would have will come in. So that's how to use your imagination as an actual tool, an actual application tool. The idea being that when you open up to your imagination, you reset yourself, take yourself back to zero. Then you create the picture that is you, that you prefer to be. Then you act like it. You behave like it. And then you have 1, 2, 3, the whole manifestation process right there. 1, 2, 3. Let yourself reset using your imagination. Let yourself create using your imagination. Let yourself act it out using your imagination. And your imagination, thus then used in the 1, 2, 3 way, will allow you to become the magician that you are, and you will become a nation of magi. Do you understand this? All right. Now, we will, as this transmission goes on, of course, investigate some of these concepts a little bit more deeply and a little bit more personally as you engage us in questions and discussions. And just the thing to keep in mind while this is going on is that no matter how physical this interaction seems, it's also all happening in your imagination. Because remember, physical reality isn't by itself real, except the experience of it is. Physical reality and everything you experience in your life is created, whether you know it or not, whether you're conscious of it or not, through what you imagine your reality to be. Your beliefs, obviously, your definitions obviously play a part. Your emotions play a part. Your thoughts play a part. But it is your beliefs, your emotions, and your thoughts that all wrap together into the triangle of your personality prism, and once it locks together in that triangle is the template of the imagination that activates your reality. That's the conduit through which you send those beliefs, definitions, emotions, and thoughts up to the realm of the higher self, where manifestation is immediate and instantaneous, and energy is all pervasive. Then the higher self, the higher mind, sends that thought, reflects it back through the imagination to the physical mind, and gives it to you in terms of the passion of your true self, so that by simply acting on it, by simply following your passion, the higher self lets you know, this is the wish you have sent me, translated into the language of the higher mind. Do it. Act it out. Act it out, and you will be speaking the language of the higher mind. You will be blended and harmonized as the physical mind and a higher mind into one holistic being, one holistic person that can then reflect that relationship into manifestations in an imagination reality that is being created by you. It is just a mirror. That's all it is. It's just reflecting back what you imagine it can be. That's all it is. So, as we said, with that in mind, we would invite you